Before we get into the story, leave a comment and let us know what city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Langston Tower penthouse, each drop racing down the glass like tiny silver bullets. Inside, Ethan Cross stood at his home bar, loosening his tie with one hand, while pouring himself 2 fingers of whiskey with the other. It was 2 a.m., and he'd just returned from the most exhausting board meeting of his life. 12 hours. 12 brutal hours of arguing with shareholders who thought they knew how to run his tech empire better than he did. His jaw was still tight from clenching his teeth through their idiotic suggestions. He downed the whiskey in one gulp, savoring the burn as it slid down his throat. At 32, Ethan Cross was worth $3 billion, CEO of Crosstech Industries, and according to Forbes, one of the most eligible bachelors in Manhattan. But tonight, he just felt old and tired. He set the glass down harder than intended, the sharp clink echoing through his pristine white living room. Everything in his penthouse was white. White marble floors, white leather furniture, white walls. His interior designer had called it minimalist elegance. His mother called it a hospital. Ethan called it peaceful. No clutter, no chaos, no complications. He headed toward his bedroom, already dreaming of his California king bed and the blissful 8 hours of sleep he desperately needed. Tomorrow was Saturday, and he'd blocked out the entire day for absolutely nothing. No meetings, no calls, no emergencies. Just him, his bed, and maybe some takeout if he felt ambitious enough to leave the penthouse. He pushed open his bedroom door, not bothering to turn on the light. The city glow filtering through his windows provided enough illumination. He kicked off his Italian leather shoes, unbuttoned his shirt halfway, and that's when he froze. There was someone in his bed. Someone small, curled up under his white duvet, dark hair splayed across his pillow. For exactly 3 seconds, Ethan's brain short-circuited. Then instinct kicked in. His hand shot to his phone, ready to call security. But he paused. The intruder wasn't moving. In fact, whoever it was seemed to be sound asleep, breathing deeply and evenly. Ethan crept closer, his heart pounding despite himself. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, recognition slammed into him like a freight train. Olivia Mitchell, his secretary, his 26-year-old, perpetually cheerful, slightly clumsy, impossibly organized secretary, was asleep in his bed. Ethan stood there, phone still in hand, mind racing through 1,000 possible explanations. Had she been kidnapped and dumped here? No, that made no sense. Had she been drugged? He leaned closer, studying her face. She looked peaceful, even smiling slightly in her sleep. No signs of distress. Then his gaze traveled down, and his throat went dry. She was wearing one of his shirts, his white dress shirt to be exact, the one he'd left in his office yesterday because he'd spilled coffee on it during a morning meeting. The shirt hung off her small frame, reaching mid-thigh, the sleeves rolled up multiple times. Her legs were bare, smooth and pale against his dark sheets. Ethan swallowed hard and took a deliberate step back. This was wrong. This was very, very wrong. He needed to wake her up, demand an explanation, and figure out how his secretary had ended up in his bed wearing his clothes. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the whiskey. Maybe it was the fact that Olivia looked so damn peaceful, like she belonged there. He shook his head violently. Number. That was insane. She was his employee, his very efficient, very professional employee who color-coded his calendar and remembered everyone's birthdays and somehow always knew when he needed coffee before he realized it himself. She was not someone who should be in his bed. Ethan cleared his throat loudly. Olivia didn't stir. He cleared it again, louder this time. Nothing. He reached out and gently shook her shoulder. Her skin was warm under his palm, and he jerked his hand back like he'd been burned. This was crossing every professional line in existence. He needed to handle this rationally, calmly, and above all, appropriately. He walked to the light switch and flipped it on, flooding the room with harsh white light. Olivia mumbled something unintelligible and burrowed deeper into the pillow. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. Was she seriously not waking up? He moved closer to the bed and said firmly, "Louder now. Olivia, wake up." Still nothing. He bent down until he was level with her face and spoke directly into her ear. "Olivia Mitchell, wake up right now or I'm calling security." Her eyelids fluttered. Progress. Then she smiled, still clearly half asleep, and murmured in the sweetest voice he'd ever heard. 5 more minutes. "Mom." Ethan straightened up, running a hand through his hair in frustration. This was ridiculous. He was a billionaire CEO, and he couldn't even wake up his own secretary. He grabbed the edge of the duvet and yanked it off her in one swift motion. The cool air hit Olivia's exposed legs, and her eyes finally snapped open. For a moment, she just blinked up at him, confused and adorable with her messy hair and sleepy eyes. Then reality seemed to crash down on her all at once. She sat up so fast she almost headbutted him, clutching the shirt around her like it was a life preserver. Her eyes went wide as saucers, darting from Ethan to the room to herself and back to Ethan. Her mouth opened and closed several times before any sound came out, and when it did, it was a strangled squeak. Mr. Cross. What? Why? How? She looked down at herself, at his shirt, and her face turned the most spectacular shade of red he'd ever seen. Oh my God. Oh my God. This isn't. I can explain. Ethan crossed his arms over his chest, trying to look stern and authoritative, despite the absurdity of the situation. I'm listening. Olivia scrambled to the edge of the bed, pulling the shirt down as far as it would go, which wasn't very far. She wouldn't meet his eyes. There was a situation. At the office. And the words tumbled out in a rush, barely coherent. Your mother called. About the gala. And then the coffee machine exploded. Actual explosion. There was water everywhere. And I was soaked. Completely soaked. And you weren't in your office, but your door was open. And I thought you'd left for the day. Ethan held up a hand. Slow down. Start from the beginning. Olivia took a deep breath, her fingers twisting in the hem of his shirt. Okay. So, yesterday after you left for the board meeting, I stayed late to finish the Henderson report. Around 11 p.m., the stupid office coffee machine malfunctioned and sprayed boiling water everywhere. I got drenched. My clothes were ruined. I couldn't go home like that. So I went to your office to see if you had anything I could borrow. Your closet had some spare clothes, so I took a shirt. I was going to change and leave, but then I felt so tired. And your couch looked so comfortable. Wait, Ethan interrupted. My couch? Olivia's blush deepened. I meant to just rest for a minute. But I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was disoriented, and it was dark, and I somehow ended up here instead of the couch. And I'm so sorry, Mr. Cross. This is completely unprofessional. I'll resign immediately. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan stared at her, processing this tornado of information. So let me get this straight. You fell asleep in my office, somehow sleepwalked into my penthouse bedroom, and you're now offering to quit? Olivia nodded miserably. Yes, sir. I understand if you want to fire me. This is beyond inappropriate. I violated so many company policies. I'll pack my things and leave right now. She started to stand, but Ethan held up a hand again. Sit. She sat. He walked to his closet, grabbed a pair of sweatpants, and tossed them at her. Put these on. We're going to have coffee and a rational conversation like adults. And Olivia? She looked up at him, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. You're not fired. Relief washed over her face, but confusion quickly replaced it. "I'm not." He smirked despite himself. "Not yet, anyway." "Now get dressed. I'll be in the kitchen." Ethan strode out of the bedroom and headed straight for his kitchen, trying to ignore the fact that his heart was racing. He'd handled hostile corporate takeovers with more composure than this. He flipped on the kitchen lights and started pulling out coffee supplies with more force than necessary. The expensive Italian espresso machine gleamed on his marble counter, a wedding gift from his ex-fiancée that he'd kept purely because it made excellent coffee. He jabbed at the buttons, loaded the grounds, and tried very hard not to think about Olivia Mitchell in his bedroom, putting on his sweatpants. This was a disaster. Not because she'd fallen asleep in his bed, that was an honest mistake, but because of how his body had reacted when he saw her there. The way his pulse had jumped, the way he'd noticed how the shirt slipped off her shoulder, the way he'd wanted to climb into that bed beside her instead of waking her up. Ethan gripped the edge of the counter and took a deep breath. He was not that guy. He did not sleep with his employees. He had rules, boundaries, ethics. The espresso machine hissed and gurgled, filling 2 small cups with dark, rich coffee. He heard soft footsteps behind him and turned. Olivia stood in the kitchen doorway, swimming in his shirt and sweatpants. She'd rolled the pants up several times, but they still pooled around her feet. Her hair was a disaster, sticking up in every direction, and she looked absolutely mortified. "I'm really sorry," she said quietly. "I know this is beyond weird." Ethan handed her a cup of coffee. "Sit." He gestured to the bar stools lined up against his kitchen island. Olivia climbed onto one, wrapping both hands around the tiny cup like it might protect her from his anger. Ethan leaned against the counter opposite her, sipping his own coffee, studying her. In the 2 years Olivia had worked for him, he'd noticed certain things. How she hummed while organizing files. How she always wore bright colors to the office, as if personally offended by his monochrome aesthetic. How she brought him lunch when he forgot to eat. How she laughed at his terrible jokes during conference calls, even when no one else did. He'd also noticed she was beautiful. Not in the obvious way of the models his friends dated, but in a natural, effortless way that snuck up on you. Big brown eyes that sparkled when she was excited about something. A smile that lit up entire rooms. Freckles scattered across her nose that she tried to hide with makeup. And now, sitting in his kitchen at 2:30 in the morning, wearing his clothes and looking utterly vulnerable, she was devastating. Ethan cleared his throat and forced himself to focus. "Tell me about the coffee machine explosion." Olivia groaned. "It was horrible. I was making my 4th cup because the Henderson report was killing me. And suddenly, there was this loud pop and water was shooting everywhere. It soaked through my blouse, my skirt, everything. I called maintenance, but they said they couldn't get anyone until morning. I was freezing and miserable, and I just wanted to go home. But I couldn't exactly walk through Manhattan looking like I'd jumped in a lake. So I went to your office, hoping you'd have something, anything, I could change into." "And you chose my white dress shirt?" Ethan asked, one eyebrow raised. Olivia's cheeks flushed. "It was the first thing I saw. Your closet has like 15 white shirts. I grabbed one and changed in your bathroom. But then, I was so exhausted from staying late all week, and your office couch looked so inviting. I thought I'd rest for just a few minutes before heading home. Next thing I knew, I was waking up and you were standing over me looking like you wanted to murder me." Ethan almost smiled. "I didn't want to murder you. I wanted to understand how my secretary ended up in my bed." Olivia buried her face in her hands. "I don't know. I honestly don't know. I must have been sleepwalking or something. Your penthouse is connected to your office through that private elevator. Maybe I pressed the wrong button? I've never sleepwalked in my life, but I've also never been that exhausted. I'm so sorry, Mr. Cross, This must be so awkward for you. Ethan set down his coffee cup. It's Ethan. If you're going to sleep in my bed, you might as well use my first name. Olivia peeked at him through her fingers, and he could see she was trying not to smile. That's not funny. Actually, Ethan said, surprising himself, it's a little funny. I've had people break into my office, hack my emails, and try to bribe my assistants. But I've never had anyone accidentally sleepwalk into my bedroom. That's a first. Olivia lowered her hands, relief flickering across her face. So you're not firing me? Ethan studied her for a long moment. Why would I fire my best secretary over an honest mistake? Olivia's eyes widened. Best secretary? You've been through 7 assistants in 5 years. I'm the only one who's lasted more than 6 months. That's because you're the only one who can tolerate me, Ethan admitted. You don't quit when I'm demanding. You don't cry when I'm blunt. You fix problems before I know they exist. Do you have any idea how valuable that is? Olivia stared at him like he'd just spoken in a foreign language. I didn't know you felt that way. You always seem so, she hesitated, searching for the right word. Distant. Ethan laughed. A short, sharp sound. Distant. That's one way to put it. My ex-fiancé used to say I was emotionally unavailable. My therapist calls it defensive detachment. I prefer to think I'm just focused. You were engaged? Olivia blurted out, then immediately looked horrified. Sorry. That's none of my business. Ethan waved off her concern. 4 years ago. Lasted 6 months. She wanted a husband who came home for dinner. I wanted to build an empire. We wanted different things. He picked up his coffee cup, draining the last of it. Best decision I ever made, ending it. She's married now. 2 kids, living in Connecticut. Much happier without me. Olivia tilted her head, studying him with those 2 perceptive eyes. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. Happy. He'd never really thought about it in those terms. He was successful, powerful, wealthy, respected. But happy? That was a different question entirely. He met Olivia's gaze and said honestly, I don't know. I'm satisfied with my work. I've accomplished most of my goals. But happy? He paused. Complicated. Olivia nodded slowly. I get that. Sometimes I wonder if I'm happy or just busy enough not to notice I'm not. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. She understood. This woman who color-coded files and remembered birthdays somehow understood the thing he'd never been able to articulate. He poured himself another coffee, needing something to do with his hands. What about you? Why do you stay? You could work anywhere. I know recruiters call you. I've seen the messages. Olivia wrapped her fingers around her empty cup, staring into it like it held answers. Because you're brilliant. Because watching you build something from nothing is inspiring. Because even when you're demanding and blunt and impossible, you're fair. You've never once treated me like I'm less than human. Some of my previous bosses, she shook her head. Let's just say they had expectations that went beyond typing and scheduling. Ethan's jaw tightened. If anyone ever, he started, voice low and dangerous. Olivia held up a hand. I know how to handle myself. I quit those jobs, found better ones, found you. And yes, you're difficult. Yes, you work insane hours. Yes, you once made me reformat a presentation 7 times because you didn't like the shade of blue. But you've never made me uncomfortable. You've never crossed a line. She paused, then added with a tiny smile. Until tonight, I guess. But that was my fault, not yours. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something dangerous stirring in his chest. She was smart. She was capable. She was sitting in his kitchen at 3 a.m. wearing his clothes and somehow making him feel more alive than he had in years. This was bad. This was very bad. He should send her home right now, maintain the professional distance he'd worked so hard to establish. Instead, he heard himself say, "Are you hungry? I make excellent scrambled eggs." Olivia blinked. Eggs? At 3 a.m.? Why not? Ethan opened his massive stainless steel refrigerator and started pulling out ingredients. "I'm awake." "You're awake. We're both clearly not sleeping anytime soon. Might as well eat." Olivia laughed, a real, genuine laugh that made something warm bloom in his chest. "Okay. But I'm helping. You can't cook and maintain your CEO dignity at the same time. I won't tell anyone if you can't crack eggs properly." Ethan shot her an offended look. "I'll have you know I'm an excellent cook." Olivia slid off the bar stool, padding over to stand next to him. "Prove it." What followed was 30 minutes of the most chaotic, ridiculous cooking session Ethan had experienced in his entire life. Olivia insisted on doing everything her way, which apparently involved adding cheese at the wrong time, using too much butter, and humming while she worked. Ethan kept trying to correct her technique, which led to her swatting his hands away and declaring him a control freak. They argued over the proper way to scramble eggs. They debated the merits of salt versus pepper. They laughed until Ethan's sides hurt, and he couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed like this. Finally, they ended up with 2 plates of slightly overcooked, but surprisingly delicious eggs. They sat at his kitchen island, eating in comfortable silence, the rain still drumming against the windows. Ethan watched Olivia take a bite and close her eyes in satisfaction. "See? My method works. These are perfect." Ethan shook his head, smiling despite himself. "They're passable. At best." Olivia kicked his shin lightly under the counter. "You're such a snob. Admit it. This is the best 3 a.m. scrambled eggs you've ever had." He met her eyes, something warm and dangerous swirling between them. "Yes. The best." They finished their eggs in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that felt more intimate than words. Ethan collected their plates and loaded them into his dishwasher, with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd lived alone for years. When he turned back, Olivia was staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the Manhattan skyline, her profile illuminated by the city lights. The rain had slowed to a gentle patter, and the city looked clean and new, like the storm had washed away all the grime and chaos. She looked impossibly small standing there, wrapped in his oversized clothes, and Ethan felt an overwhelming urge to protect her from everything and everyone, including himself. "I should call you a car," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "Get you home safely." Olivia turned to him, and something flickered across her face. Disappointment, maybe, but it was gone before he could identify it. "Right. Of course. I've taken up enough of your night." She glanced down at herself. "Though I should probably change back into my own clothes first. Except my clothes are ruined. And still at the office." She laughed nervously. "This is getting more complicated by the minute." Ethan walked to his bedroom, motioning for her to follow. "Keep the shirt and sweatpants. I have dozens. Consider it compensation for dealing with the coffee machine disaster." Olivia followed him hesitantly, hovering in the doorway like she was afraid to cross the threshold again. "I can't take your clothes, mister." She paused. "I mean, Ethan." "That's weird." Ethan pulled a Crosstech branded hoodie from his closet and tossed it to her. "Then consider it company property." "You're representing the brand." She caught it, hugging it to her chest. "This is a $300 hoodie. I've seen these in the company store." He shrugged. "You work hard. You deserve expensive things. Now come on, I'll walk you down to the car." They took the private elevator down to the building's underground garage in silence. Ethan's driver, Marcus, was already waiting with the black sedan, ever professional despite the ridiculous hour. "Marcus," Ethan said, "please take Miss Mitchell home safely. And Marcus, make sure she gets inside her apartment. Don't leave until you see her lights turn on." Marcus nodded. Of course, sir. Olivia climbed into the back seat, then looked up at Ethan through the open door. Thank you. For not firing me. For the eggs. For being understanding about all of this. Ethan leaned against the doorframe. Olivia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Her eyes widened slightly. Okay. Why do you work so hard? Why do you stay late every night? Why do you care so much about a job that, let's be honest, probably doesn't pay you what you're worth? Olivia was quiet for a moment, her fingers playing with the hem of his hoodie. Because I'm good at it. Because it matters. Because building something meaningful, even if I'm just a small part of it, makes me feel like I'm doing something important with my life. And because, she hesitated, then met his eyes directly. Working for you challenges me. You push me to be better, smarter, more capable. I was coasting before I took this job. Now I'm learning every single day. That's worth more than money. Ethan felt something crack open inside his chest. He wanted to tell her she wasn't a small part of anything. She was essential, irreplaceable. Instead, he just nodded. Get some rest this weekend. I'll see you Monday. As the car pulled away, Ethan stood in the empty garage, watching the tail lights disappear. He should go upstairs. He should sleep. He should forget this entire bizarre night happened. Instead, he pulled out his phone and sent a text to his head of HR. Need you to review Olivia Mitchell's compensation package first thing Monday. Significant raise and bonus effective immediately. Then he went back upstairs to his penthouse, to his bedroom, where the sheets still smelled faintly of her floral shampoo, and he didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Monday morning arrived like a sledgehammer. Olivia stood outside Crosstech Industries at 8:55 a.m., clutching her coffee like a lifeline, trying to work up the courage to go inside. She'd spent the entire weekend replaying Saturday morning in excruciating detail. The way Ethan had looked at her when he found her in his bed, the way they'd laughed in his kitchen, the way something had shifted between them, something dangerous and exciting and absolutely terrifying. She'd convinced herself it was nothing, a weird moment born of exhaustion and circumstance. By Monday, everything would be back to normal, professional, distant, safe. She took a deep breath and walked into the building. The lobby was already bustling with employees, everyone moving with the purposeful efficiency of people who had places to be and deadlines to meet. Olivia rode the elevator up to the executive floor, her stomach doing complicated gymnastics the entire way. When the doors opened, she stepped out and nearly collided with Jennifer from accounting. "Oh, Olivia!" Jennifer grabbed her arm, eyes wide with excitement. "Have you heard?" "Heard what?" Olivia asked cautiously. Jennifer leaned in conspiratorially. "Mr. Cross gave you a raise, like a huge raise, and a bonus. Everyone's talking about it. How did you manage that?" Olivia felt her face heat. "I didn't." "I don't," she stammered. "Are you sure?" Jennifer nodded enthusiastically. "HR sent out the updated compensation roster this morning. Your new salary is listed. Girl, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You're like the only person who can handle him." With that, Jennifer hurried off, leaving Olivia standing in the hallway feeling like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. She walked slowly to her desk just outside Ethan's office, set down her coffee, and tried to process this information. A raise. A significant raise, according to his text to HR. Why would he do that? Her computer pinged with a calendar notification. Ethan Cross wanted to see her in his office immediately. Of course he did. Olivia straightened her skirt, checked her reflection in her compact mirror to make sure she looked professional and composed, then knocked on his door. "Come in," his voice called from inside. She pushed open the door and found Ethan standing at his desk, already on his second or third coffee of the morning, reviewing something on his tablet. He looked up when she entered, and for just a second, something warm flickered in his eyes, before his professional mask slid back into place. "Close the door," he said. Olivia did, her heart hammering. She walked to his desk, but didn't sit. He didn't offer. They stood there, the massive wooden desk between them like a barrier. "About your raise," Ethan started. Olivia held up a hand. "Mr. Cross, you didn't have to do that. Especially not because of Saturday. What happened was my mistake, and I don't expect any kind of compensation for it." Ethan set down his tablet and looked at her with those intense blue eyes that always made her feel like he could see straight through her. "That's not why I did it. I reviewed your file over the weekend. You've been underpaid for 2 years. You handle the work of 3 people. You've never once complained. The raise is what you deserve, not some apology for an awkward situation." Olivia felt something warm spread through her chest. "Still, I didn't expect it." "Thank you." Ethan nodded curtly. "You're welcome. Now, about the Henderson report. I need you to schedule a follow-up meeting with their team, Friday morning if possible. Also, my mother called again about the gala. She wants to know if I'm bringing anyone. Tell her I'm busy." And his jaw tightened slightly. "Make sure security knows that Victoria is not allowed in the building. My ex-fiancé has been calling. I don't want any surprises." Olivia pulled out her tablet and started making notes, slipping back into her professional role like a familiar coat. Consider it done. "Anything else?" Ethan hesitated, and Olivia looked up from her tablet. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "About Saturday," he said slowly. "I think we should forget it happened. Go back to normal, professional boundaries and all that." Olivia felt something sink in her stomach, but she kept her voice steady. "Of course. Absolutely. It was just a weird moment, already forgotten." Ethan nodded, but he didn't look relieved. He looked almost disappointed. Before Olivia could analyze it further, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "I need to take this. Close the door on your way out." Olivia left his office feeling strangely hollow. She should be relieved. Back to normal meant safe, predictable, no complicated feelings to navigate. But as she sat at her desk and pulled up her calendar, she couldn't shake the memory of him standing in his kitchen at 3 a.m., laughing at her terrible cooking technique, looking more human and real than she'd ever seen him. "Stop it," she told herself firmly. "He's your boss." It was one weird night. Move on. But moving on proved harder than expected, because Ethan Cross apparently couldn't take his own advice about professional boundaries. It started small. He began asking her opinion on things he'd never consulted her about before. Should he take the meeting with the Japanese investors? What did she think about the new marketing campaign? He started staying late when she stayed late, claiming he had work to do but mostly just talking to her about random things. His favorite restaurants, her terrible college roommate, the book he was reading, the podcast she'd recommended. He brought her coffee in the afternoons, expensive lattes from the shop 3 blocks over that she'd mentioned once in passing. Olivia tried to maintain professional distance. She really did. But Ethan made it impossible. He'd catch her eye during boring meetings and make a face that said, "This is torture," and she'd have to bite her lip to keep from laughing. He'd leave sticky notes on her desk with ridiculous instructions like, "Demand that everyone call me Supreme Leader today," or "I'm declaring Casual Friday mandatory." HR is furious. She'd fire back her own notes. "Your mother called again. I told her you were kidnapped by aliens. She believed me. You're welcome." 2 weeks after the bedroom incident, as Olivia had started calling it in her head, things came to a head. It was Friday night, and she was staying late yet again to finish quarterly reports. The office was empty except for her and Ethan, who was supposedly working in his office, but had wandered out 3 times in the last hour to ask increasingly absurd questions. The 3rd time, Olivia finally snapped. She spun around in her chair to face him. "Okay, what's going on?" Ethan blinked innocently. What do you mean? She gestured at him. You've asked me if I prefer mountains or beaches, whether I think aliens exist, and what my favorite dinosaur is. None of that is work-related. I'm curious, Ethan said, leaning against her desk. You're always so focused on work. I want to know what you think about things that aren't quarterly reports and meeting agendas. Olivia crossed her arms. Why? Ethan's casual expression faltered slightly. Because he hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Because I can't stop thinking about that night, about how easy it was to talk to you, how real everything felt. And I know I said we should forget it happened, but I can't. I've tried, Olivia. I've really tried. The office suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. Olivia stared at Ethan, her heart doing wild acrobatics in her chest. She should shut this down immediately. She should remind him about professional boundaries and company policies and all the very good reasons why this was a terrible idea. Instead, she heard herself whisper, I can't stop thinking about it either. Ethan's eyes darkened. That's a problem, a big problem. Why? Because you're my boss? Olivia challenged, surprised by her own boldness. Because there are rules? Because this is complicated? Ethan pushed off from her desk and started pacing, running his hands through his hair in frustration. Yes, all of that. You're the best secretary I've ever had. If this goes wrong, I lose you. The company loses you. And you could lose your career. People will say you slept your way to the top. They'll discount everything you've accomplished. I won't let that happen to you. Olivia stood up, her hands clenched at her sides. Don't I get a say in this? Don't I get to decide what risks I'm willing to take? Ethan stopped pacing and turned to face her. Of course you do. But I need you to really think about it. Think about what you'd be risking. What are you risking? Olivia asked quietly. Ethan laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Everything. My focus, my carefully constructed life, my ability to walk into this office every day without wanting to pull you into that conference room and kiss you until neither of us can think straight. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Olivia took a step toward him. So don't fight it. Ethan shook his head. You don't understand. I don't do relationships well. I'm married to my work. Ask my ex-fiancé. Ask anyone who's tried to get close to me. I hurt people, Olivia. Not intentionally, but I do. I don't want to hurt you. Maybe I'm stronger than you think, Olivia said, taking another step closer. Maybe I can handle your long hours and your dedication to work. Maybe I already do. I'm here every night, Ethan, right beside you. I see how hard you work. I understand it because I'm the same way. We already spend more time together than most married couples. Would it really be so terrible to admit there's something more here? Ethan closed his eyes like he was in pain. You're killing me. Do you know that? You're standing there in your perfectly professional outfit, making perfectly logical arguments, and all I can think about is how you looked in my shirt, how right it felt, how much I wanted to climb into that bed beside you. Then why don't you? Olivia challenged, her voice barely above a whisper. Why don't you take what you want? Ethan's eyes snapped open, blazing with intensity. Because I'm trying to be honorable. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to protect you. From what? Olivia demanded, frustration bleeding into her voice. From yourself? From me? I'm a grown woman, Ethan. I make my own choices. And right now, I'm choosing to tell you that I want this. Whatever this is. I want to see where it goes. Ethan stared at her for a long moment, and Olivia could see the internal war playing out across his face. Desire versus duty. Want versus wisdom. Finally, he closed the distance between them in 2 long strides. One date, he said, his voice rough. One real date. Not in the office. Not related to work. If after that date you still want this, then we'll figure it out. But I need you to be sure, Olivia. I need you to really know what you're getting into." Olivia smiled, feeling victorious and terrified in equal measure. One date. When? Saturday night, 7 o'clock. Wear something nice. And Olivia? His hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her skin in a touch that felt electric. This crosses every line I've ever drawn. If we do this, there's no going back. "I don't want to go back," Olivia whispered. Ethan's lips curved into a slow smile. "Good. Now go home. Get some rest. You have a big date to prepare for." Olivia grabbed her bag, her whole body humming with excitement and anticipation. She paused at the door and turned back. "Ethan?" He looked up from his desk. "For what it's worth, I think you're worth the risk." He smiled, a real genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Saturday can't come fast enough. Saturday arrived with agonizing slowness. Olivia spent the entire day in a state of barely contained panic. She changed her outfit 4 times, curled her hair, then straightened it, then curled it again, and drove her roommate, Sarah, absolutely insane with her nervous rambling. Sarah, sprawled on Olivia's bed watching the chaos, finally threw a pillow at her. "You're going on a date, not meeting the Queen of England." "Calm down." Olivia whirled around, wearing her 5th outfit option, a sleek black dress that hit just above her knees. "How can I calm down? This is my boss. My billionaire boss who makes me feel like I'm constantly on fire. What if I mess this up?" Sarah sat up, her expression softening. "Liv, he asked you out. That means he already likes you. Just be yourself. The same brilliant, slightly neurotic, color-coding obsessed person you always are." Olivia flopped down next to her. What if being myself isn't enough? What if I'm too boring for a guy who probably dates supermodels and heiresses? Sarah rolled her eyes. If he wanted a supermodel, he'd be dating one. He wants you. Now put on that dress because it looks amazing. Fix your makeup, which you've smudged from touching your face too much, and go have the best first date of your life. At exactly 7 o'clock, Olivia's phone buzzed. "I'm downstairs. Don't be nervous." Her hands were shaking as she grabbed her clutch and headed down to the street. Ethan was waiting outside a sleek black car, but it wasn't his usual sedan with Marcus. This was his personal car, a gorgeous vintage Aston Martin that probably cost more than her yearly salary. He was leaning against it, wearing dark jeans, a crisp white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, and a charcoal blazer. He looked devastating. When he saw her, his eyes widened, and he straightened up, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You look incredible," he said, opening the passenger door for her. Olivia slid into the luxurious leather seat, trying not to hyperventilate. "You don't look so bad yourself." "Where are we going?" Ethan climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine, which purred to life with a satisfying roar. "It's a surprise, but I promise you'll like it." They drove through Manhattan as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ethan navigated the traffic with easy confidence, one hand on the wheel, occasionally glancing over at her, with that small smile playing at his lips. Olivia tried to relax, letting herself enjoy this moment. Just the two of them. No office, no work, no complicated professional dynamics. Finally, they pulled up to a small, unassuming building in Brooklyn. Olivia looked around, confused. This wasn't a fancy restaurant or exclusive club. It looked like a regular brownstone. "Ethan, where are we?" He came around to open her door. "My favorite place in the entire city. Trust me." He led her up the steps and knocked on the door. A moment later, an elderly Italian woman opened it, her face lighting up when she saw Ethan. "Ethan!" She pulled him into a fierce hug. "It's been too long. Why don't you visit more?" Ethan hugged her back, laughing. "I'm sorry, Maria. Work has been crazy." He gestured to Olivia. "This is Olivia. Olivia, this is Maria. She runs the best Italian restaurant you've never heard of." Maria studied Olivia with sharp, assessing eyes, then broke into a warm smile. "She's beautiful. Come in, come in. I've saved you the good table." They followed Maria into what looked like her living room, but instead of furniture, there were 6 small tables covered in red, checkered cloths. The walls were covered with family photos and Italian landscape paintings. A handful of other couples were scattered throughout the space, eating and talking quietly. Soft opera music played in the background. It was intimate and warm and completely unexpected. Maria led them to a corner table by a window, overlooking a small garden lit with fairy lights. "This is incredible," Olivia breathed. "How did you find this place?" Ethan held out her chair before sitting down across from her. "I got lost in Brooklyn 5 years ago, walked into what I thought was a regular restaurant. Turned out to be Maria's place. She's been feeding me ever since. Only locals and people Maria likes know about it. There's no menu. She just cooks what she feels like making that day." Olivia looked around, enchanted. "It's perfect." Maria appeared with a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses. "Tonight I make my grandmother's recipe. Osso buco. You'll love it." She poured their wine with a flourish, then leaned close to Ethan and stage whispered, "This one is special. Don't mess it up." Ethan laughed. "I'll do my best." Maria winked at Olivia and disappeared into the kitchen. Ethan raised his glass. To crossing lines. Olivia clinked her glass against his. To taking risks. They drank, and the wine was rich and perfect, warming her from the inside. "So," Olivia said, leaning back in her chair, "tell me something I don't know about you. Something real." Ethan considered the question. "I wanted to be a teacher. Before all of this, before Crosstech and the money and the empire building. I wanted to teach high school math. That was the dream." Olivia blinked in surprise. "Really? What changed?" He shrugged. "My father died when I was 22. Left me with a failing tech company and massive debt. I had 2 choices. Let it die or save it. I chose to save it. Spent the next 10 years building it into what it is now. But sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if I'd taken the other path, taught classes, graded papers, had summers off. It sounds quiet, peaceful." "Do you regret it?" Olivia asked softly. Ethan met her eyes. "Not exactly. I'm proud of what I've built. But sometimes I miss the simplicity of having a dream that wasn't so consuming." Olivia reached across the table and took his hand. "For what it's worth, I think you'd make an excellent teacher. You're patient when you want to be. You explain things clearly. And you push people to be better." Ethan turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. "Thank you. Now your turn. Tell me something real." Olivia took a breath. "I'm afraid of being ordinary. My whole life, I've watched people settle for okay jobs and okay relationships and okay lives. I'm terrified of waking up one day and realizing I've become one of them. That's why I work so hard, why I stay late, why I care so much, because I need to believe I'm building something that matters." "You're extraordinary," Ethan said with such certainty that Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "You've always been extraordinary. From the first day you walked into my office with your color-coded calendar and your ridiculous optimism, I knew you were different. Special. Don't ever doubt that." Maria chose that moment to appear with their food, saving Olivia from the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. The osso buco was incredible. Tender meat falling off the bone, rich sauce that tasted like comfort itself. They ate and talked and laughed, the conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. Childhood memories, favorite books, terrible ex-boyfriends, and worse ex-girlfriends. Dreams for the future. By the time Maria brought out dessert, a perfect panna cotta drizzled with raspberry sauce, Olivia felt like she was floating. Not from the wine, though that helped, but from the realization that this was real. Ethan Cross, billionaire CEO, the man she'd worked beside for 2 years, was looking at her like she hung the moon. And more terrifying, she was looking back at him the same way. They finished dessert and said goodbye to Maria, who hugged them both and whispered to Olivia, "He's a good boy. Hard worker. Lonely heart. You make him smile. That's rare. Keep doing it." Outside, the Brooklyn night was cool and clear, stars barely visible through the city lights. Ethan took Olivia's hand as they walked back to his car. "That was perfect," she said. "Thank you for bringing me here. I wanted you to see a side of my life that doesn't involve boardrooms and quarterly reports," Ethan admitted. "I wanted you to know that underneath the CEO persona, I'm just a guy who likes good food and quiet moments." Olivia squeezed his hand. "I already knew that. I've seen you at 3 a.m. making scrambled eggs. Remember?" Ethan laughed. "How could I forget?" That was the night everything changed. They reached his car, but neither of them moved to get in. They stood there, hands intertwined, the moment stretching between them. "Olivia," Ethan said quietly, his free hand coming up to cup her face, "I need to tell you something. I've dated plenty of women, had relationships, or what I thought were relationships. But none of them felt like this. None of them made me want to leave work early or stay up all night just talking. None of them understood me the way you do. I'm terrified of messing this up, of hurting you. But I'm more terrified of not taking this chance." Olivia rose up on her toes, bringing her face close to his. "Then don't be terrified. Just kiss me." Ethan didn't need to be told twice. His lips met hers, gentle at first, testing. But when Olivia melted into him, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair, the kiss deepened. It was everything she'd imagined, and nothing like she'd expected. He tasted like wine and dessert and possibility. His hand settled on her waist, pulling her closer, and Olivia forgot where they were, forgot everything except the feeling of finally being exactly where she wanted to be. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I found you in my bed," Olivia laughed. "You should have. Would have saved us weeks of tension." He grinned. "Where's the fun in that?" They drove back to Manhattan with the windows down, cool night air whipping through the car, Ethan's hand resting on her thigh, Olivia's hand covering his. When he pulled up outside her apartment building, she didn't want the night to end. "Do you want to come up?" she asked, then immediately felt her face heat. "For coffee?" "Just coffee." Ethan studied her, his expression serious. "If I come up, it won't be just coffee. And I don't want to rush this, Olivia. I want to do this right. Take you on dates, get to know you outside the office, court you properly, if that's even a thing people still do." Olivia felt warmth flood through her chest. "You're really something, you know that?" Ethan smiled. "Is that a yes to more dates?" "Absolutely." "But Ethan," she leaned over and kissed him once more, slow and deliberate. "Just so you know, I'm not very patient." He groaned. "You're going to kill me." "Good," she said cheerfully, climbing out of the car. "See you Monday, Mr. Cross." The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments and secret smiles. They kept their relationship quiet at work, not ready to deal with office gossip and HR complications. But outside the office, they were inseparable. Ethan took her to Broadway shows and hole-in-the-wall diners. She dragged him to modern art exhibits and bookstores, where he bought her entire stacks of novels. They spent Sunday mornings in bed, reading the paper and drinking coffee. They cooked together, though Ethan quickly learned that Olivia's method of cooking involved more chaos than technique. They talked about everything and nothing, building something real and solid. But keeping their relationship secret proved harder than expected. People at work started noticing changes. Ethan smiled more. He left the office at reasonable hours. He seemed lighter, happier. Olivia found herself humming while she worked, color-coding files with extra enthusiasm. Their friends started asking questions. Sarah cornered Olivia one night, eyes sparkling with suspicion. "You're seeing someone." "Spill." Olivia tried to play innocent. "I don't know what you mean," Sarah laughed. "Please, you've been floating around here like a Disney princess. You hum. You never hum." "Who is he?" "Fine," Olivia admitted. "I'm seeing someone. But it's complicated. It's new. I'm not ready to talk about it yet." Sarah studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Okay. But whoever he is, he makes you happy." That's all that matters. Things got more complicated when Ethan's mother, the formidable Patricia Cross, decided to visit. She swept into his office unannounced one Tuesday afternoon, all elegant silk blouses and disapproving glances. Olivia was at her desk when Patricia arrived, and the older woman stopped to look her up and down like she was inspecting a piece of furniture. "You're new," Patricia stated. "What happened to that blonde girl?" "I've been here for 2 years," Olivia said calmly. "I'm Olivia Mitchell, Mr. Cross's executive assistant." Patricia sniffed. "Executive assistant. In my day, they called it secretary. Is my son available?" Olivia checked the calendar. "He's in a meeting for another 20 minutes. Would you like to wait?" Patricia settled into one of the leather chairs outside Ethan's office. "I'll wait. And while I do, you can tell me why my son has been so peculiar lately." "Peculiar?" Olivia echoed, trying not to smile. "Happy," Patricia clarified, like the word tasted strange. "He's been happy, smiling, leaving work early. He even called me last week just to chat. Ethan doesn't chat. Something's going on. Maybe he's just in a good mood," Olivia suggested, keeping her voice neutral. Patricia's eyes narrowed. "It's a woman. It has to be. He has that look. The same look he had when he was engaged to Victoria, except more so." "Do you know who she is?" Olivia felt her cheeks heat. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cross, but I don't discuss Mr. Cross's personal life." Patricia looked impressed despite herself. "Loyal. That's good. But mark my words, I'll find out eventually. I always do." Thankfully, Ethan's meeting ended, and he emerged from the conference room. When he saw his mother, his face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, resignation, and finally polite warmth. "Mother," he said, leaning down to kiss her cheek. "This is unexpected." Patricia stood, gathering her designer handbag. "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by and see why my only son has been avoiding me." "We had lunch 2 weeks ago," Ethan pointed out. "Ancient history," Patricia waved dismissively. "Now, are you going to tell me who she is, or do I have to hire a private investigator?" Ethan glanced at Olivia, who was trying very hard to look busy with her computer. "I don't know what you're talking about." Patricia laughed. "Please, I raised you. I know when you're hiding something." "Fine, don't tell me. But when you're ready to introduce her to the family, give me advance notice. I need time to prepare." After Patricia finally left, Ethan came out of his office and leaned against Olivia's desk. "That was terrifying," Olivia said. "She's like a bloodhound. She knows something's up." Ethan sighed. "My mother has supernatural powers of perception. It's her superpower. How much time do you think we have before she figures it out?" Olivia thought about Patricia's sharp eyes and knowing smile. A week? Maybe less. Ethan nodded slowly. Then maybe we should tell people. Make it official. Stop hiding. Olivia's heart raced. Are you sure? What about work? What about HR? What about people thinking I slept my way to the top? Ethan pushed off from her desk and held out his hand. Come with me. Olivia took his hand, confused, and let him lead her into his office. He closed the door behind them, then pulled her close. I don't care what people think. I don't care about office gossip or HR policies or any of it. I care about you, and I'm tired of pretending I don't. I want to take you to company events. I want to have lunch with you in the building cafeteria where everyone can see. I want everyone to know that you're brilliant and capable and mine, if you want that too. Olivia looked up at him, her heart so full she thought it might burst. I want that. All of it. But Ethan, if we do this, we do it right. I don't want anyone to think I got special treatment. I want to earn my place here on my own merit. Ethan smiled. You already have. Everyone in this building knows you're the most capable person on the executive floor. You've earned their respect through your work. Our relationship doesn't change that. Now, are we doing this? Olivia took a deep breath and nodded. We're doing this. Ethan kissed her, long and thorough, in his office, with the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. When they pulled apart, Olivia laughed breathlessly. The entire floor probably saw that through your glass walls. Good, Ethan said, not looking even slightly concerned. Let them see. By the end of the week, their relationship was the worst-kept secret in cross-tech industries. Some people were supportive, genuinely happy to see their demanding CEO smiling and their favorite assistant glowing. Others were skeptical, whispering about favoritism and inappropriate workplace relationships. Olivia held her head high and did her job better than ever, determined to prove that she'd earned her position through skill, not romance. HR called them both in for a meeting about workplace relationship policies. There was paperwork to sign, protocols to follow, reassurances that Olivia's employment was secure regardless of what happened in her personal life. Through it all, Ethan stood beside her, unwavering in his support. When colleagues whispered in the break room, he addressed it head-on in a company-wide email. When Patricia insisted on meeting Olivia formally, he held her hand through an awkward but ultimately successful dinner. When Olivia had a moment of panic, wondering if she'd made a huge mistake mixing work and romance, he reminded her why they'd taken the risk in the first place. 3 months into their now public relationship, everything fell apart. Not because of them, but because of Victoria. Ethan's ex-fiancée showed up unannounced at the office one afternoon, perfectly dressed and perfectly furious. Olivia was at her desk when Victoria swept past, heading straight for Ethan's office. She tried to intercept. I'm sorry, but Mr. Cross is in a meeting. You can't just... Victoria whirled on her, eyes cold. And who are you? The secretary? Get out of my way. I need to speak with my fiancé. Ex-fiancé, Olivia corrected, standing her ground. And he's not available. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, I can find time next week. Victoria's laugh was sharp and mean. Oh, I see. You're the new toy. How cute. Tell me, does he make you work late too? Is that how he seduced you? With overtime and false promises? Olivia felt her face heat but kept her voice steady. Mrs. Kingston, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. If you don't, I'll call security. Do it, Victoria challenged. Call security. Let's see how fast they respond when I tell them I'm here to warn Ethan about his little gold digger. Before Olivia could respond, Ethan's office door opened. He took one look at Victoria, and his expression went cold. What are you doing here? Victoria's confident facade cracked slightly. I needed to see you. To warn you. She gestured at Olivia. Do you really think she cares about you? She's after your money, Ethan, just like everyone else. Ethan stepped fully into the hallway, positioning himself between Victoria and Olivia. First, you don't get to come to my office unannounced. Second, you don't get to insult Olivia. And third, his voice dropped lower, more dangerous. You lost the right to have opinions about my life when you cheated on me with your tennis instructor. Victoria's face went white. I never, she started. Don't, Ethan cut her off. I knew. I always knew. I just didn't care enough to fight about it. We were wrong for each other from the beginning. You wanted a husband who'd attend charity galas and country club events. I wanted to build something meaningful. We both settled. It's over. Move on. Victoria's eyes filled with tears, but they looked calculated rather than genuine. You'll regret this. She'll break your heart. They all do. Then she looked at Olivia. Enjoy it while it lasts, honey. He gets bored easily. With that, she swept out, leaving a wake of expensive perfume and bitterness. Olivia stood frozen, Victoria's words echoing in her head. He gets bored easily. Was that true? Would Ethan eventually tire of her once the novelty wore off? Stop, Ethan said, reading her expression. Don't let her get in your head. She's bitter because I'm happy. That's all. Olivia forced a smile. I know. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. That night, alone in her apartment, doubt crept in. Victoria had been polished and perfect, and exactly the type of woman who belonged in Ethan's world. What if he did get bored? What if she was just a phase, a walk on the wild side before he returned to dating socialites and heiresses? Her phone buzzed. Ethan, I'm outside. Can we talk? She buzzed him up, and when he arrived, he looked worried. You've been quiet all evening. Talk to me. Olivia wrapped her arms around herself. What if Victoria's right? What if I'm not enough for you? What if you wake up one day and realize you'd rather have someone who fits your world better? Ethan crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Listen to me. Victoria was wrong for me because she wanted to change me. She wanted a version of Ethan Cross that didn't exist. A socialite husband who'd play golf and attend galas and care about which charity was trendy this season. You, he tilted her face up to meet his eyes. You fell in love with me as I am. You like that I'm obsessed with work. You understand my drive. You challenge me and support me and make me laugh. You're not a phase. You're not a novelty. You're my partner. Olivia felt tears slip down her cheeks. I'm scared. I've never felt this way about anyone. What if we mess it up? Then we mess it up, Ethan said simply. But we do it together. And we fight for it. Because what we have is worth fighting for. Don't you think? Olivia nodded, letting herself believe him. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him, pouring all her fear and hope and love into it. They spent that night talking, really talking, about their fears and hopes and the future they wanted to build together. By morning, Olivia felt stronger, more certain. They could do this. They would do this. 6 months into their relationship, Ethan took Olivia back to Maria's restaurant in Brooklyn. They'd been there several times since their first date, and Maria always greeted them with hugs and knowing smiles. But tonight felt different. Ethan seemed nervous, fidgeting with his wine glass, barely touching his food. Olivia finally reached across the table and took his hand. What's wrong? You've been weird all night. Ethan took a deep breath. I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think about it before you answer. Okay, Olivia said slowly, worry creeping in. Ethan set down his wine glass and pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. Olivia's heart stopped. Move in with me, not because it's convenient or logical, but because I can't stand waking up in my bed knowing you're across the city. Because I want to have coffee with you every morning and argue about the proper way to make scrambled eggs. Because my penthouse has felt like home ever since that night you accidentally slept there." He opened the box, revealing not a ring, but a key. A simple silver key on a Crosstech keychain. "This is the key to my penthouse. To our home, if you want it to be." Olivia stared at the key, emotions overwhelming her. She'd been expecting him to propose. Her heart had been prepared for that. But this felt more intimate, more real. Moving in together meant merging their lives completely. Sharing space and routines and morning breath and lazy Sundays. It meant commitment without the pressure of marriage. It meant choosing each other every single day. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll move in with you." Ethan's face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. He slid the key across the table to her. "It's about time you had your own key, instead of having to buzz up like a visitor." They spent the next month moving Olivia's belongings into Ethan's penthouse. Sarah helped, offering running commentary on every piece of furniture and decoration. "Your billionaire boyfriend needs color in this place. It's like living in a cloud." Olivia laughed, hanging up her bright yellow curtains in the bedroom. "That's what I told him." Slowly but surely, the sterile white penthouse transformed. Olivia's colorful throw pillows appeared on the white leather couch. Her books filled the empty shelves. Her plants added life to the windowsills. Her presence softened the sharp edges and made the space feel lived in. Ethan loved it. He'd come home from work to find her curled up on the couch reading, her legs tucked under her, and something in his chest would tighten with happiness. Living together wasn't always perfect. They argued about thermostat settings and whose turn it was to do dishes. Olivia learned that Ethan was grumpy before his first coffee and absolutely could not function without his morning routine. Ethan discovered that Olivia sang in the shower, horribly off-key, and hogged all the hot water. But they also learned how to navigate conflict, how to apologize, how to compromise, how to love each other even when they drove each other crazy. Work became easier too. Everyone at Crosstech had accepted their relationship. Some colleagues even joked that Olivia had civilized their demanding CEO. Ethan certainly seemed happier, more balanced. He delegated more, trusted his team more, and actually took weekends off occasionally. 1 year into their relationship, on the anniversary of the night Olivia had accidentally fallen asleep in his bed, Ethan planned something special. He told her to dress up, pack an overnight bag, and be ready by 7. When he pulled up to the building, he wasn't in his usual car. He was in a helicopter. Olivia stared at it in disbelief. "Are you serious right now?" Ethan grinned. "Get in. Trust me." They flew over Manhattan as the sun set, the city spreading out below them in a glittering carpet of lights. Olivia pressed her face to the window like a kid, and Ethan watched her with a smile. They landed on a private rooftop in the Hamptons, where a car waited to take them to a beautiful beach house. "This is where I come when I need to think," Ethan explained as they walked through the elegant but cozy space. "I've never brought anyone here before, but I wanted to share it with you." They spent the weekend walking on the beach, cooking meals together, making love, and talking about the future. On their last night there, as they sat on the beach watching the waves, Ethan pulled Olivia close. "I have something to tell you." Olivia looked up at him. "Okay." He took a breath. "I'm stepping back from Crosstech, not entirely, but significantly. I'm hiring a COO to handle day-to-day operations. I want more time. Time for us. Time for life outside of work." Olivia's eyes widened. "Ethan, you love that company. You built it from nothing. Are you sure?" He nodded. "I'm sure, because you taught me something important. Success isn't just about building empires. It's about building a life worth living. And I want to live, Olivia. With you. I want to travel. I want to have lazy Sunday mornings that last until noon. I want to take you to Italy and eat real Italian food. I want to spend Christmas with our families. I want all the things I thought I didn't have time for. You showed me I can have both, the company and the life, as long as I'm smart about it. Olivia felt tears slide down her cheeks. I love you. So much it scares me sometimes. Ethan wiped away her tears with his thumbs. Don't be scared. Be excited. Because this is just the beginning. 2 years after that night in his bed, they got married. It was a small ceremony in Maria's backyard in Brooklyn, with fairy lights and homemade Italian food and their closest friends and family. Patricia cried through the entire ceremony, though she'd never admit it. Sarah gave a speech about how she knew from Olivia's constant humming that her best friend had found her person. Marcus, Ethan's loyal driver, walked Olivia down the aisle since her father had passed away years before. Ethan cried when he saw her in her simple white dress. Olivia laughed through her vows. They promised to love each other through late nights and early mornings, through arguments about scrambled eggs and thermostat settings, through success and failure and everything in between. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Ethan kissed her like he was sealing a deal, thorough and certain and full of promise. At the reception, Patricia cornered Olivia. I was wrong about you. When I first met you, I thought you were just another secretary chasing my son's money. But you saved him. He was drowning in work and loneliness, and you pulled him back to life. Welcome to the family. 3 years later, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. She was terrified and excited in equal measure. She'd been working as Crosstech's VP of Operations, having earned the promotion through her own merit and hard work. How would a baby fit into their carefully constructed life? She told Ethan over breakfast on a Saturday morning. He'd just poured himself coffee when she said, almost casually, "So, I'm pregnant?" Ethan froze, coffee pot in midair. "You're what?" "Pregnant. About 8 weeks. Are you freaking out?" "Because I'm freaking out." Ethan set down the coffee pot very carefully, walked around the counter, and pulled her into his arms. "I'm not freaking out. I'm thrilled. Terrified, but thrilled." Their daughter was born on a rainy October night, perfect and tiny with Ethan's blue eyes and Olivia's dark hair. They named her Emma, and she immediately wrapped both of them around her tiny finger. Ethan discovered a capacity for love he didn't know he possessed. He'd leave work early to get home for bath time. He'd walk her around the penthouse at 2 a.m. when she couldn't sleep, singing off-key lullabies. He was completely, hopelessly in love. Olivia watched him become a father and fell in love with him all over again. 5 years after the night Olivia had accidentally fallen asleep in his bed, they stood in the same bedroom, Emma tucked safely in her nursery down the hall. The penthouse had changed completely. It was no longer stark white and minimalist. It was full of color and life and toys scattered across expensive floors. Ethan pulled Olivia close, resting his chin on top of her head. "Remember when you sleepwalked into my bed?" Olivia laughed. "How could I forget? Most embarrassing moment of my life." Ethan turned her to face him. "Best night of mine, because it led to all of this." U.S., Emma, this beautiful, chaotic, perfect life we've built. Olivia stood on her toes to kiss him. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "If someone had told me 5 years ago that accidentally sleeping in my boss's bed would lead to true love, I would have called them insane." Ethan grinned. "If someone had told me that finding my secretary asleep in my bed would be the best thing to ever happen to me, I would have laughed them out of the room. But here we are." "Here we are," Olivia echoed. They stood there in the bedroom where it all began, holding each other, grateful for a coffee machine malfunction, a moment of exhaustion, and the courage to cross every line that had kept them apart. Because sometimes the best love stories start in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes they start with a scandal. And sometimes they start with waking up in the wrong bed. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments on a scale from 0 to 10. What's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories and check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen.